Welcome to another edition of the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast with me, Dotun and
And me, Tim Vickery. And we've done lots of domestic stuff. We've done English Cup finals. We've done English relegation battles. Should we go global today?
I think we should. We should go very global. Should we go to 2018 or 2017, Tim? What do you think?
Oh, low blow. You're starting with a low blow. This is a man who hasn't bothered to shave today, who's accusing me of being slack.
This is a man who has put on his best suit. It's not even a Sunday and he's not going to church.
It's cold. It's cold, man.
That's why you're not wearing your shades today for a change.
Yeah, well, I thought about it because it has got bright, but no, it's cold. It's cold, and the only well, it's around 20, 21 degrees.
Oh, that's cold.
That's cold. That's cold. Yeah. Man's not hot. Man's not hot.
Big Shaq all the way. Big Shaq. Yeah, especially when you wear a very expensive jacket like you've got now. Do most Brazilians go for the old jacket when it gets to 20, 21 degrees?
Well, if you look at old photos, and I'm going back to your 30s or 40s or something, everyone is in a suit, and lots of them are in double-breasted suits. And I know it was cooler then because there was less concrete, but also like the wool that was used, was thicker than the wool. So I think, I was asking someone about this. I was thinking, well, weren't people just fainting over with heat and like stinking to high heaven? And the answer was yes. What happens now, and you see this more clearly with women than you do with blokes, when the temperature goes down, oh, the boots come out, the fur coats, because you got it in your wardrobe and you don't use it usually, you haven't got a chance to use it. So it can be really weird this time of year, winter, because some people are just dressed in like flip-flops and shorts and that, because they wear that all year round. And other people are walking around like the Michelin Man.
Well, that would be me. But thank you for offering me that opportunity. But
the man wouldn't be hot.
Yeah, and he certainly wouldn't be all in rubber, as it were. But when you look back at those old photographs that you mentioned, and people are wearing double-breasted suits, isn't that sort of a colonial thing that, once upon a time, it's like there's this great photograph of my grandfather and my grandmother with all us grandchildren around them, because our parents were like studying overseas from about 1965. So you can imagine how forward thinking he was. He thought, I'll gather all my grandchildren who are all living with us, loads of cousins all living together. It was the happiest time of my life, to be honest. But and my grandmother and grandfather lived in a big house in the city of Ibadan at that time, and they collected waifs and strays as well. So when you look at all the photographs, like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? But my grandfather is resplendent in an English three-piece suit, essentially, whereas my grandmother has got all the splendor of an African gear, and everybody else is wearing African clothing, robes, if you like, because of the weather. So why is my grandfather dressed like this? Well, that was a sign of not only wealth and importance, but I'm equal to the English colonial person anyway, so I'll dress like he does, and you put down, in a way, your own cultural attire to dress like the people who a lot of people believe are the ones that control things.
No doubt about it. Do you know what the word for a suit is in Japanese? English. Saburo.
Saburo.
Yeah.
Saburo.
Yeah, Saburo.
Is that true?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Brilliant, isn't it?
That is so funny. For those who don't know, Savile is a place in London where you go and get your high expensive end suits made. Once upon a time, it was right across the road from where the Beatles did their Get Back live on the roof, the final concert, as it were, because they had their Apple Records building right on Savile, one of the more expensive parts of London, for those who don't know. So thank you, and you look resplendent in your Savile.
Thank you very much. I do like a whistle. I do like a whistle.
That's what we call it over our side, mate. Yeah, let's not forget that. A whistle and flute is what we call it. For those who don't know, it's called a suit, Cockney rhyming slang. Bang in there, and even though you've been away for so long, you still remember a couple of the old colloquial terms, which is good to know. Good to know.
Well, I'm kind of stuck in time. Mm-hmm. Which means that when I listen to Man's Not Hot by Big Shaq, I can understand Rice Krispies because they get a reference, and ketchup. But there's some other things I don't understand. So I'm looking for an explanation.
Oh, well, we'll give you the explanation. And the reason why you're talking about Man's Not Hot, even though it was in the charts on December the 9th, 2018, which is, of course...
17.
Oh, yeah, I got it the wrong way around.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, yeah.
So,
But
for those
you
who
weren't
don't
the
know...
first to get it the wrong way around.
Yeah, but my wrongdoing did not turn everything, the world upside down on its head, whereas yours did. Okay, let me explain to people. If you don't know about the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast, myself and Tim here are the host, and we talk about football. Well, do we talk about football, or do we talk about places all around the world and their cultures and the social aspects of
I
life?
think we talk around football.
We talk around, or we use football as a prism through which to talk about a lot of other things.
Yeah.
The football is important. The football is absolutely vital. We focus on if you like, a legendary game of football from any time period. So we've gone from everything from 1966 World Cup, England winning that. We had to start with that, didn't we? What did you expect? And we talked about, football, classic football matches, whether it be FA Cup finals, League Cup finals, European Cup matches. Today, we're going to focus on the biggest rivalry, I would say, in world football. The biggest, do you think, Tim?
It may be the biggest inner city. I mean, the Real Madrid's Barcelona one there's just so much politics in there, and I'm sure that's there's a few like that in the Balkans as well. But the thing with Boca Juniors and River Plate is that, and had anyone predicted this in 1890, they would have thought they were mad, that South America was to become the continent of football, when it happened so quickly. And it's clearly to do with the process of urbanization and the process of immigration that the South Cone of South America was going through. And Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, and the increase in size is extraordinary around the late 19th, early 20th century. So there's people pouring in, especially from Italy, but also from Spain, from Poland, from Germany, from the Ottoman Empire, pouring in. And new urban environments, it creates a hunger for new things. It's a very, very creative period. And one of the things that becomes embraced at this point in time is football. Another thing that becomes embraced at this moment in time is tango. It's a similar dynamic in Brazil, in Rio, where it's football and samba. And the thing that I think is intriguing about this is that these two cultural phenomena come, if you like, from different extremes. The football comes from the European elite. That's where it starts, especially the British elite. And then it goes down. The tango and the samba, there's a huge African influence in both of them. And that's more apparent in samba than it is in tango, but it's in there in tango as well. Because, and if you go back a couple of hundred years, Buenos Aires was like a third black. There was a point when they stopped importing enslaved people, really, because the big industry there was beef, and it wasn't labor intensive, like sugar or coffee or anything like that. So the black population in Argentina becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, but it's there. And the word tango is an African word. It's a word of African origin.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, wow. Okay. I suppose like Shango or something, you'd hear that and you'd think, oh, that's got to be African. So why not tango?
Indeed. So tango comes up from the bottom, not only in its African roots, but also a lot of these immigrants coming in from Italy and so on, it's single men. So the focal point of the social center is the brothel. That's why it was.
It's New Orleans all over again, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so, tango is the blues of Argentina, if you like, and part of the dance of tango, the way that the woman wraps her legs around the man.
Oh gosh,
is the proponent of the world's oldest profession, attempting to win a client. So tango comes up from the bottom, and it only really gets elite acceptance in Argentina when it's successful abroad, when it becomes a fever in Paris. All right, so if the Parisians like it, that means we don't have to be ashamed of it anymore. And you get a very similar dynamic with samba in Brazil. It comes up.
And with New Orleans, you know, if the white folks love the jazz, remember the jazz was the music of the brothels in New Orleans. And you know that from Jelly Roll Morton, who has done these legendary American Library recordings that I urge everybody to listen to. You can hear a lot of them online now on YouTube and so on. But he's talking about the emergence of jazz. And he's like, well, in those days, it was like the broad, you heard of the House of the Rising Sun? Well, I used to go there every day and play the music. You know, he's like that. And then he'll play, this is what the girl, you know, the madam, she used to like this tune. And so I decided to play it like that. And she got more customers when it came like that. It was all down to old Jelly Roll. That's the way he talks.
It's Bo Diddley before Bo Diddley. Isn't
it? Yeah, exactly. Hey, Bo Diddley. I saw him live, you know. Yeah. I saw Bo Diddley live, 1978, at a place called Götelejon in Stockholm. And I was 18 years old then. And I never thought, you see, Bo or Boo is actually a Swedish name. Because, you know, Boo, B-O, is a Swedish name. Now, the colloquial form of Boo or Bo is Busse, you know, like the colloquial form of Charles is Charlie. So somebody called Boo, nobody ever says, hey, Boo, they say Busse. Somebody in the audience only goes and shouts out to Bo Diddley, come again, Busse. Everybody cracks up with laughter. Obviously, Bo Diddley doesn't get it. But he said, come on, Busse. It was so funny, but it was a brilliant concert.
Yeah. I don't know, but I've been told.
Of course you have, because you listen to Hey, Bo Diddley. I'm thinking, okay, who do you love? Who do you love? I want 25 minus 5. Oh, that's Bo Diddley all over. I can't remember.
I love the fact that he went on tour with The Clash. I think that's fantastic. And they loved him, and that they nicknamed him Uncle Skidly Dadley.
That's the way he played his guitar, Skidly Dadley. Don't forget his sister, the Duchess, when she pulled out a mean guitar. I can tell you that as well. But yeah. So where were we? We were talking about House of Rising Suns, we
were talking about
brothels.
Football coming down the social scale, and the cultural phenomenon, tango in Argentina, moving up the social scale. But both intrinsically part of these years of massive urbanization of Buenos Aires, and as you're saying, it's so similar to the New Orleans thing.
Indeed. Let's talk about. I've looked at the top 10 all-time greatest tangos here, and I'm thinking which one. I'd love it for my missus to wrap her leg around me, you know, right around my behind in the way that they do in those tango things. So I'm trying to figure out which one of those I should go for. I like, only because I understand the words of the title. I like Jay Sanders and C. Vidani with Adios, muchachos. I see myself saying to all my friends, look, see you later. My missus is wrapping her leg right around my bottom. So see you later, guys. Don't come back too soon. Stay out all night if you like. Adios, muchachos.
If you really want to get into it, and I'm certainly no connoisseur, but the main man, the really famous one, is Carlos Gardel. And Carlos Gardel, he's popularized it in song form, died at the height, 1935, I think he died in an air crash in Colombia, in Medellin. And it's one of those Sam Cooke, Bob Marley moments. Now, what on earth would he have produced had he stayed alive? And Gardel, there's always like an enigmatic smile. I find it very hard to understand Argentina. There's things of Argentina, because Argentina is, on the one hand, an extremely rational place. People read and you can sit down and have intelligent conversations. On the other, it's just mad. It's Buenos Aires has got a huge amount of bookshops and so on. It's a very literate culture. But on the other hand, there's just this mad passion, totally irrational passion, which football actually brings to the surface very much. And that kind of enigmatic smile of Carlos Gardel there's something of the Argentine soul in it.
And if you saw the movie Scent of a Woman with Al Pacino,
Mm-hmm.
it's the melody that you listen to during the famous
Por
scene where
una cabeza, por una cabeza. Carlos Gardel.
indeed. People know it now because it was that scene where Al Pacino danced the tango with Gabriel Anwar. Por una cabeza, por una cabeza.
As Al Pacino says in that film,
that was from 1935. What does por una cabeza, for one cabeza?
For a head. I don't know what that one's about. I've never studied the lyrics.
Right.
There are some that I have, and they're usually, this is where it gets very bluesy. They're usually on there's a really interesting comparison I think we can make between, on the one hand, tango lyrics, and on the other, the top 10 that we're going to look at briefly today, which is the biggest Boca Juniors versus River Plate of all time, which was a Libertadores final, which was so big that they couldn't stage it in Argentina and had to take it to Madrid, controversially enough, in December of 18. Because if you look at the top,
it wasn't just for the size of it. It was because of all the security issues, I thought, as well.
Yeah, because the violence. They just couldn't do it. It was just too big. It was a game that was too big for Buenos Aires. And if you look at the top 10 of December 18, it's very, very proactive female emancipation. That's one of the big themes that you get out of that. If you look at tango lyrics, the woman is always, unless it's the mother, which is the saint, the woman is always the treacherous creature who's brought me down. You can make such a comparison between tango and blues.
Yeah, indeed. These lyrics, I'm looking for your benefit, and translate as you can. How good is your Spanish, by the way?
Well, no, it's not great, and a lot of them are in dialect. It's a dialect called lunfardo, which
lunfardo.
Yeah, there's kind of Cockney rhyming slang type things in there, but you got to remember that they all come from Buenos Aires. You think they're talking Italian to you, because the intonation is Italian.
They are Italians. They're all Italians.
Yeah, exactly,
Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi.
And Messi's other name, his other surname, is something like Cicciolino or something like that. You know, I mean,
there you go.
Something like that. They're all Italian.
And you get good spaghetti there, I hear. As well.
Yeah, and terrific pizza, and it's good for that. So that lunfardo, it's kind of provincial dialects of Italian mixed in, all originally I think to kind of confound the police.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try and test your Spanish now. Por una cabeza de un noble potrillo.
Yeah, I think potrillo is a racehorse.
Yes, you're well done.
On the head of a noble racehorse.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's betting. So that's such a tango situation. If you're not losing your heart to some horrible, dark-hearted, treacherous woman, you're losing your money on the racetrack.
This tells us a lot about the Argentinian psyche when it comes to football. Look, let's come back to that lyric, because I think there's more to be had from that. But you want to talk about this iconic football match, one of the great rivalries, one of the great derbies, and it's bigger than the country that contains. Well, the country is not big enough to contain it, so it has to go overseas. First of all, Copa Libertadores, that is the South American equivalent of the Champions League over there, isn't it? So it's the biggest club tournament over there.
Yeah, and they'd met in semi-finals before, but they'd never met in the final. So this was this was the first time, meaning that it's the biggest one ever. 2 legs, and it was all very dramatic, because the first leg at Boca's ground, it had to be put back 24 hours because there was a deluge. Mm-hmm. So straight away the heavens are saying, tread carefully here. So then you get the first leg, which is a really good. You're worrying that the tension of the occasion is going to be too much, and it's a 2-2 draw. And then there's the break for FIFA matches. So you got to wait a few weeks for the rematch at Rivers ground, and then on the way to Rivers ground, the Boca coach is attacked, and there's stones thrown.
I remember it very vividly. Yeah.
And one of the players gets some glass in his eye or something. So obviously the game can't go ahead, and there are attempts to no, you can't play when one of the players is in hospital. So there's all sorts. I mean, this rumbled on in the Court of Arbitration for Sport for ages and ages and ages afterwards, and in the end. CONMEBOL, the local UEFA, they considered, well, where else can we take it? Can we take it maybe Colombia? Too far for the supporters to go to.
Yeah.
And with one eye on the main chance of selling their product, they ended up taking it to Madrid, where they could put it in a time zone that was good for a European audience. And I think that they made a lot of money out of it. And since then, the tournament, instead of being a two-legged final, has been a one-legged final on a neutral ground. So in financial terms, it worked, but it was quite colonially insensitive to take.
No doubt we'll come back
to Spain.
Yeah, no doubt we'll come back to Europe as well, only because it was such a success. It ended up being a blinder of a final, actually, didn't it? It ended up being one
really dramatic. You know, it was a great occasion, and yeah, I mean, the quality of the game probably wasn't as great as you'd get in a Champions League final, but the dramaticity, it's a good word to come up with, isn't it? Especially since I've been up since 5:30 this morning. Lionel Messi has given me a lot of work.
Well, I'll come back to Lionel Messi soon. You're not going to get away with that tonight. He's going to give you a little bit more work tonight. But tell me this, first of all, though. These two teams, because we talked about they're meeting up in the final. I've had to watch 2 years worth of
I had to listen to Man's Not Hot.
Yeah, well, it's not the same.
I think I won.
I think you won. Anyway, because the year before, these two teams had met in the semi-finals. Yeah, the year before, in 2017, they'd met in the semi-finals.
And they'd met, and they couldn't complete that game either, because the River team at Boca Stadium, half-time, coming back onto the field, a Boca fan. There's a protective tunnel that's supposed to. A Boca fan managed to cut his way through it and throw pepper spray at the River players. So you know,
where does that rivalry? Because you mentioned 1890. Does that rivalry start from there?
It starts soon afterwards. On both of them, and it's a real immigrant story. Both these clubs start life in the Boca neighborhood. Working class, Dockland, Argentina. The immigrants pouring in from Italy. And what happens over time is that Boca stay there and River move out to the snooty suburbs. The contrast between them is Boca, the neighborhood, which is quite close to the city centre. You can walk from the city centre. The neighborhood is packed. The stadium is called the Chocolate Box informally because it just goes up. There's no space there. You know, it's exactly the kind of environment where coronavirus is spreading in South America, because the people live so packed together. So there's no space in the Boca. Everything is packed. River Plate moved out to the snooty suburbs. There's so much space. There's big, elegant parks around it. And the stadium, their stadium is, the corridors are as wide as United Nations building. So there's such a contrast between the two clubs. And Boca obviously stand for the sweat of your working class immigrants.
Yeah.
And River stand for the snootiness of the immigrant dream. You know, the one who's moved out, who's moved out to the suburbs.
Nouveau riche.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, if you actually look at the social base of the fans, because they have between them that they have something like 70% of Argentines would identify with one or the other. And actually, the social base of Boca fans and the social base of River fans is pretty much exactly the same. But on the level of symbol, Boca stand for the people. And River stand for the rich, and that thing works on a level of symbol. And Boca wear, and you'll enjoy this, they wear blue and yellow, because when they founded the club, the Boca, it's Swedish, the Docklands area. You know, we're gonna whatever the next boat that comes down, whatever it's, we're gonna choose its colours, and the next boat came from Sweden.
Yeah. That is such a good anecdote.
Yeah, River playing white, And then one year, many years ago, right near the start, someone had the idea of, it was a carnival thing, putting a sash over it. Yeah, that's good. That looks good, doesn't it? A sash is always great.
Yeah, of course
So
it is.
they get the red sash on the white. So as an honorary Swede, I think you should be a Boca fan.
Well, you say that. One of my colleagues, who's based in Argentina, and she's of Japanese heritage, by the way, she says that, oh no, she's not really into football, but her father made her a River Plate fan. And, so when I was talking to her at the time of this match in 2018, I said, who are you going to go for? He said, look, I don't really follow football, but I have to go for River Plate. Otherwise, my father will be so disappointed in me. And I thought, what? Is it that serious? Is it really that serious? And apparently it is.
Yeah.
So these two teams met in 2017. From what I see about that, they were kicking, chunks out of each other in that one. So I think 2 players got sent off, red card for each side. So it sort of balanced things up a bit. But the red cards were really malicious ones, So one of them, the foot was so high. If you're going to get your
marching orders, you might
as well. You're flipping. I felt sorry for Eric Cantona. That's who I felt sorry for. This guy came with his flying kit. I thought Eric Cantona must be watching that and thinking. And I got suspended. I got banned for a year or whatever it was for that. Anyway, so I was so looking forward to the next match, the real match, as it were, the one that you really wanted to talk about, not the one that you thought you might want to talk about. Anyway, it's a long story.
Man's not bright. That's the story of that.
Listen, at the end of this podcast, hopefully I'll explain all these jokes. It's a good one. It's worth listening to the end of the podcast for. So 2018, do both sides agree to stage this final in Madrid? Because of course what happens is you're out of your comfort zone, and I'm presuming a lot of your fans, although Argentinian fans do seem to travel all over the world for their team, but at least the national team, I'm presuming that a lot of your fans won't be able to make it, and it's neutral ground, as it were.
Well, and there's a big Argentine community in Spain anyway, so they can go. But no, you're not going to get them to agree to anything, Boca thought that they should have been awarded the trophy because of the attack. So they didn't want to play the game in the first place. So they only went under protest. And that afterwards, whatever happens, win, lose or draw, they're going to take it to the Court of Arbitration to sport to try and if they lose, to try and overturn it, which they did. No, there's no such thing as the common good.
Okay, how did they set out? You said that it wasn't the greatest game of football. I tend to disagree. When you look at certainly the first 2 goals.
Well, look at the celebration. The first goal, and Benedetto scores the
brilliant goal.
Ahead. Yeah, it's a great goal. It is a great goal. But the celebration is just absolutely intense. These, as they used to say about the 2 boxers, before the weigh-in, when they're eyeing each other up. These 2 guys just plain don't like each other.
Just don't like each other. But that goal, the reason why I thought it was a brilliant goal, not just because of the brilliant pass from the center of the pitch that split the River Plate defense up, but before that, River Plate were on the attack. So this was a counter attack, and River Plate lost a really golden opportunity to score a goal. And I thought, you're going to rue this. You're going to rue it because you should have scored then, but somehow the Boca defender managed to pick it up, pass it on to the midfielder, I think it was, and then he just split the defence with a really long ball going diagonally left to right, which was picked up by the Boca striker and dribbled past one person, I think it was, who was sliding in any case with a dangerous tackle against him, and then only had the goalkeeper to beat. And I thought, well, if I saw that in the Premier League, I'd still say that was one of the goals of the season,
Yeah, no, it was a great goal. It was a great goal. But then my man Quintero comes on. I love Quintero, a little Colombian playmaker who has got obsessed with music and has got obsessed with food. But when he wants to play, he comes on in the second half and turns the game. And the fellow who scores the equaliser for Rivers in the second half, Lucas Prato.
That was a good goal as well.
Yeah, it is.
Like a 1-2.
Sport has a way of turning the star of Saturday into the mug of Monday. The following year, when River Plate are again in the final, and no one has managed to win 2 successive Libertadores for a long time, River Plate are like 2 minutes away. They're 1-up against Flamengo of Brazil. And who's the villain? Who loses the ball, loses possession when he had no right to lose the ball? Lucas Prato. So the fellow who scored the goal the vital equalising goal in 2018 is the fella who messes it all up in 2019.
You know, you've just given away the result now, haven't you? You've given away the result.
Yeah, but I think most people will know what happened. I don't think this is a state secret. It got such a big TV audience.
Of course it did. Of course it did. And there was a game of 2 or 3 substitutions, and one of the latter ones is probably, we should highlight that along the way, Carlos Tevez.
Yes, and interesting that at that point Tevez wasn't seen as a starter. He came back, and subsequently Boca won the league, and he was the main man. You keep thinking that he's all over, that his time spent golfing leave with Manchester City, or doing nothing in China is going to take the edge, and he keeps coming back.
The thing I did think about, because when I saw him on the bench, I thought, I remember him saying at some point he wants to end his career at Boca Juniors. I remember, I think Maradona saying that, and Riquelme, did he say that as well?
They did.
Yeah, you see, I've never
Riquelme
heard...
is now running the club now, and
right.
One day Maradona would love to manage it.
But I've never heard any footballer that we would know of playing in European leagues from Argentina saying, I want to end my career going back to play for River Plate. I've never heard it.
Yeah, on Boca is more passion. Again, it's that thing of space, and you're just crammed. So the fans, the energy from the fans is memorable. And every football fan one day should go to Boca Stadium. It's hard to get in. I mean, one of the problems is that the stadium is far too small. Its capacity is too small because of this lack of space for all of the fans who want to go. And it's been a dilemma for Boca for years and years and years. There were plans at one stage to move out of the neighbourhood, but that would kill them. That would kill them. They wouldn't be Boca anymore if they didn't play in Boca. And one of the things with their story is Argentine football has an absolute golden age in the 40s. That's when it's at its absolute peak. And just as you get into the 40s, late 30s, early 40s, that's when River moved to their current home and Boca moved to their current home as well. So the ball's on the penalty spot for them, if you like. When Argentine football goes into its golden age, these two clubs, the giant clubs, have moved into the stadiums, which are so much of their identity.
Yeah, as they say, the old tango, of Carlos Gardel. He says, okay, I'm spending the money on the GGs, and que importa perder si ella mi olvida, mi veces la vida, para que vivir. What do you think of my Spanish, by the way?
It's very good. It's a kind of Afro-Saxon blend of Spanish, which is unlikely to catch on. Variation.
Tim, you know how to destroy a man's enthusiasm. You did it very slick. I won't forgive you for that. But do we learn anything about this match, though, in terms of where Argentinian football is? I saw 2 teams full of real passionate athletes, and I saw more passion in that game, that final, than I'd seen for a long time, even in the Premier League. The kind of passion that was there with all 22 players on the pitch, every single moment full of passion. I thought they played a little bit less, brutally against each other than on previous occasions. I don't know if they were playing for the cameras there, or they wanted the European audience to see that they had skills, to sign me and take me to Europe for millions and millions of dollars. They weren't as, it wasn't like a kung fu film so much this time around. But I thought they had passion. And they ran for 90 minutes. There was nobody sort of like hiding in their corner and sort. They ran for 90 minutes. They really wanted the ball. They wanted to put one over the other. And when people talk about how great the English game is, they talk about the passion. But the English passion is as much a passion of the fans as it is of the play on the pitch. Here I felt, fans are passionate, but actually the intensity of what was going on in the pitch showed me it really meant a lot to all the players. And I thought, why can't we watch Argentinian football on TV all the time. Maybe it's not always of that standard, but even to get into why they love it so passionately, I think you have to absorb yourself into it.
Yeah, I think maybe some documentaries around it would be more interesting than watching 90 minutes of the league games. I think that would be interesting.
But you comment on the league games, don't you, in Argentina?
No, I do the Libertadores games, the South America's Champions League. Although I can't do it at the moment because I can't get into Argentina. So that little stream of revenue has died up for.
It's not all about the money, ka-ching.
No,
ka-ching. Remember,
no, it's all about, but it's all about the work, you know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is true.
That English passion, irony is always a part of that passion, isn't it? That's what we do so well. With the Argentines, it is just passion. And with these derby games anyway, I get a little bit iffy about them. There's just too much. It's too much hatred. It's too much.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I find it too much. I find it because maybe I'm just a stupid idealist, but for me, football is an activity that you make friends. And a lot, because I've been to lots of South American derbies, and some of my memories are not good. You know, I remember going to one here in Rio, a big one, and on the bus, and there's a gun battle going on outside, and everyone in the bus is on the floor, and it's kids and old people and wailing and thinking, is this worth it? You know, like most people
who
love
over football, though. Was that actually over football?
Well, no, it's a lot of the fan violence in Argentina is over money. It's you can make a living from being a football hooligan, but part of it is over football. And like most people who love football, there are times that I hate it. There are times when I always want football to be part of the solution, to bring people together and give them an international language. But there are times when I think it's part of the problem, when it divides people like that and sparks hatred between people who otherwise would be natural allies.
Okay, let me give you a little quick maths test. Quick maths. 2 + 2 is?
4 last time I looked.
-1?
3.
Yeah, it's so far doing really well. And this quick maths was echoed in the House of Parliament by an MP who'd been listening to Big Shaq's "Man's Not Hot," which was in the charts on December the 9th, 2017.
He was ahead of his time, wasn't he, Big Shaq? It should have been December the 9th, 2018.
I know, but he's ahead of his time. But she walked into Parliament and she said, "Look, 2 + 2 is 4, -1, that's 3. Quick maths." She did it exactly like Big Shaq. So you knew where she got it from. And basically, she was trying to, she was a Labour MP, a black Labour MP, and she was trying to sort of expose the government sort of handling of the economy or something like that. It worked really well.
So she didn't make all those black noises that happened during the song, did she?
Oh, you can't quite do that because, that's gunshots, brap. Brap. That's gunshots. You can't do that in Parliament. They'll say that you're trying to.
That's my problem with the song. That's the question I want to ask you, because I like it.
That's not a problem, though, Tim. That's just what kids do. It's like we go bang bang, you're dead in our day. It's not. We don't mean it. It's just like the sound of it sounds good on the records. Brap brap brap, and people say it to each other. If you like something, if you go on Arsenal fan TV, for example, and they love some player, they'll go brap brap brap. They don't mean they're not saying go out and take a gun and just brrr. And they're not the police in Wisconsin, firing 7 shots into the back of an unarmed black man and saying brap brap brap, we're doing it for real. Those are the people that you should be saying.
Sure, no, I agree 100%. But in a post Ali G world, isn't that a little bit ludicrous?
Well, the funny thing is, you should say that. You know what Big Shaq is? He's a comedian. People look at him as a rapper because he did this. It's a comedy song. This is like Dick Emery doing "Come on and do the conga, listen to my song." It's in that tradition. So if you make the mistake of thinking that "Man's Not Hot" is a rap, it's a brilliant take on it, because it's almost like going to watch Spinal Tap and say, "Yeah, they're taking the mickey, but it's good." Do you know what I mean?
So it's What by Captain Sensible.
It is. Or you could say, you know what, it's not quite that actually, because Captain Sensible was never a comedian. He was an artist first and foremost.
No, but it's funny. The Americans invented
Yeah.
a new form, and what are we going to do? What's the British response? Let's take the piss out of it. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And comedians have done that in Britain from the beginning of time. I do remember Harry Enfield doing a record, you know, didn't he do that? Loads of money, slap dosh. Wasn't that a record as well at some point?
It was, yeah.
And who else has, there've been some, a couple of them have got to number one, those comedians. So I say it's a comedy song, first and foremost, done in a rap style. But do you know what it's about? Man's Not Hot.
He ain't going to take his jacket off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why ain't he going to take his jacket off?
He spent a lot of money on it.
Exactly.
And it's 40 degrees, man.
Yeah,
but the man's not hot.
It's not. Look, that was really happening. This isn't a joke business. That was really happening. Do you know how much those kids spend on? I've got a stepson. And I can tell you what, I don't want to hear about, let me just put it this way, I'm going to put it out there. My stepson moved back in to save money to go and buy a place with his girlfriend. Do you know how long he's been here now? Do you know how long he's been here? But you look at him when he goes out.
How old is he?
I'm not going to say that. That would be a bit too embarrassing. But he's old enough to know that you don't spend half of the savings that you're supposed to be getting a place for your missus with on a brand new coat. Because I haven't had a brand new coat for years. I saw him last night. I was like looking at that coat and thinking, flipping out, that costs more than the last suit I bought 5 times over.
And he can't live in it. That's the difference between a house and a coat.
Although he has to live in it if he goes out and they said, can I have your coat, please? At the door of some clubs. No, man's not hot. Man's not hot because he knows that's £1,000 coat, mate. It's not 400 or 500 quid. That's what I'm saying to him. That's what the joke is. You know, it's like going out with a girl. It's a little bit like Chuck Berry's No Particular Place to Go. You know where Chuck Berry goes, oh man, all night long I held a grudge for the safety belt that wouldn't budge, cruising and playing my radio with no particular place to go, because you got the girl of your dreams sitting in the side beside you, but your safety belt gets jammed, and guess what? You know, you can't do anything. Man's not hot. When you're with a girl, okay, she may want to kiss you and hug you and say, no, it's all right. I'm a little bit sweaty at the moment, but man's not hot, you know, I'm keeping my coat on. That's what it's about, mate. And that was one of the best songs. I mean, it broke down, contrary to the theme of it having sort of gun noises in it, actually what this did was take a lot of the lead away from the gangster rappers or the gangster grime artists and whatever, because they suddenly saw, because they've been starting it out for years, you know, gangster rappers do it because that's what's selling. And that's what's selling amongst a smaller audience. So the gangster rappers or gangster grimers or the drill artists, as they would call them now, they're selling maybe like, you know, or making 10 grand out of a record. This man's made $1 million out of taking the piss out of it. So suddenly, after he did Man's Not Hot, you saw all these other guys thinking, oh, I'll do a little bit of comedy. I'll lighten it up. I'll give it a good groove and everything. Did you like the groove though?
Oh, I did, yeah. No, I did.
It's a proper Steppers tune. Once
again, I liked it very much. I'm glad I discovered it.
His name's Michael, I can't remember his surname now, begins with D, Ghanaian, from Ghanaian roots. Very much like Stormzy, their origins are from Ghana. You know, Ghana, and I like to think Nigeria, but at the moment it's Ghana that's caning it in terms of grime, are the new Jamaicans in the UK. Since you've been gone, no, you see, there's been no sizable new immigration from the Caribbean into the UK since the 1970s. And I'm talking like the mid-1970s. They all go to the States or Canada now because closer and they're more welcomed there than the UK basically lost its... It's Michael Dapper, isn't it? It's Michael Dapper is the guy that I'm thinking of, D-A-P-A-H, Michael Dapper, the comedian. But a lot of those, he's Big Shaq, but a lot of those people that came over the Windrush, they now go to either the United States, particularly Florida, close to Jamaica. I mean, Florida, Miami is only like half an hour, 45 minutes away from Kingston, Jamaica by flight. And they've been doing that since the 50s, but England was a mother country. So, or Britain was the mother country, so they came here. But now they're not looking at it like that. They're just thinking we're more welcome in Canada. More people from the Caribbean that go to Canada are likely to come out successful financially, economically, business-wise, and everything than the ones that come to the UK. So people think, stuff that for a laugh, we'll go to
Yeah.
Canada and become
No,
millionaires.
social mobility in the UK is gone, isn't it?
Exactly,
Yeah.
in that respect, especially if you come from, Caribbean or Africa or, South Asia or wherever it might be. So I don't go there anymore. And the Ghanaians have taken over the music scene. They have, I mean, West Africans have taken over the music scene. Not everybody likes it. You might have heard of a certain spat recently between one of the so-called godfathers of grime music, a guy called Wiley. He's had his time, he's gone, but and Stormzy. And for me, that was partly to do with kind of a Africa Caribbean thing. I could be wrong, but that's the way I read it. And if I'm wrong, I apologize, but that's the way I read it.
This is fascinating for me because I've been away for so long, and it's a different country.
It is, yes.
I've sensed this through England youth teams, looking at England youth teams, and the number of players who have clearly of African origin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Jamaican music of the time, when the English Jamaican music, you could hear Jamaica in there. Actually, as an off point, one I think of the greatest records of all time, which is it never seems to get the respect it deserves, is Intuition by Lynx. Remember it, early 80s?
David Grant, I know him very well. In fact,
well, what a fantastic song that is. And it takes a Stevie Wonder influence, and with that steel band feel, it just makes it London English. It's a great record. Anyway, my question is, can you hear Africa in the work of these new Black Londoners of African origin?
Well, no. I hear Jamaica in it because remember, even though it may not be about Jamaica anymore, Jamaica has been the platform from which we have all been launched. I mean, if you're talking about grime music, you're probably talking about it originating from a sort of Anglo-Caribbean perspective of rap music, not an Anglo-African perspective on rap music, if that makes sense. And so there is still a lot of like Jamaica. The language itself, the colloquialism that young kids use on the street, it ain't African. There are elements of the odd African thing creeping in, the ones that people just found funny, like Wahala, or, I can't think of any others. People just like that because it sounds like off the wall, or shakara. I've heard one or two people say, what do you think this is? Some big shakara. And it's like, that's a proper hardcore, like Nigerian word that you wouldn't have expected. But actually, we're more likely to say, yeah, the man dems, and yeah, man, that man is Butters, or, the words that came up through a sort of a Caribbean, Anglo-Caribbean sort of sensibility. So no, I don't.
Fascinating.
There is another musical form that they call Afrobeat now, not to be confused with Fela, the originator of Afrobeat. Afrobeat is anything goes, but it's got a little bit of African influence in it. That's very different from grime. Grime is the music that's caning it amongst the youngers, not Afrobeats. Afrobeats is doing well, don't get me wrong, but not on the level of grime, mate. None of those guys, Afrobeats guys, are on the level of Storms or anybody like that.
See, in this fascinating, because we're talking from Buenos Aires 100 years ago.
But it's similar. It's similar.
So it's such a similar dynamic.
I can totally hear the connections. Those kids, those black and white, by the way, young football players that you're talking about, what are they listening to? They're listening the same way that we talked about how the rhythm and blues, or blues and jazz, emerged out of New Orleans. You talked about how the tango emerged out of Argentina. Remember, or mostly Buenos Aires, I'd have thought, if you're talking about brothels and so on. That brothel scene isn't quite what it used to be in terms of the place you go to hear the development of music. But if you say that the rappers, look at who their heroes are. Who are they sparring with? They're sparring with David Beckham. David Beckham is sparring with them. So they're being influenced by football. Football is influencing them, and it's being influenced by grime as well. And all those kids, you look at their styles, their celebrations, some of them a little bit gangster in their celebrations, you know. Thiago Silva.
Yeah, but there's a rap about him, isn't it? I mean, I can't remember who did it. Mark, our producer, will know all of this because he's of that generation.
He's that generation. Yeah.
It looks like he may well be coming to London to Chelsea. And every time I was watching the Champions League final with him playing for Paris Saint-Germain against Bayern Munich. Every time he was on the ball, I had that voice in my mind, Thiago Silva.
Can't leave it. What about Lionel Messi? They're saying that he might be coming over this side as well. It was Dave, was it, that did that Thiago Silva thing?
Thiago Silva.
Yeah. But what about Lionel Messi? That's what all the papers are suggesting, that he might be coming over this side, if anybody could afford to pay him £1 million a week.
City are a possibility, United are a possibility.
Bayern Munich are a possibility.
Yeah, unlikely, I think. Paris Saint-Germain, Inter Milan. Obviously, Ozzy Ardiles is going to put in a word and get him to Tottenham. That's where the story is going to end.
Unlikely, but it's a nice thought in any case. But how can you, for you, isn't it, this has come full circle in a way that you're the first one that tipped people on this young pigeon-toed teenager from Argentina coming our way, spent most of his mature life, and in fact his adolescence as well, in Barcelona. And it's a bit sad, isn't it, after 19 years, well, he's been at Barcelona for 19 years altogether, 19 years since he was 13. It's a little bit sad that, and he is or was the world's greatest player, in my view, certainly. As much as Cristiano Ronaldo gave him a run for his money, still thought Lionel Messi. Cristiano Ronaldo had to work for it. He had to build himself up as, Michelangelo's David or whatever it was. Whereas with his less than adequate attributes in terms of, football, you thinking when you looked at Lionel Messi, didn't look like a player, did he? And yet he had it all, I would have thought.
One of the great things about football, isn't it? Look at Maradona. What else is Maradona going to do?
But when you look at his thighs, thighs and his low centre of gravity, I think that he's a player. Whereas I never quite got that with Messi, especially when he had long hair, And he was probably better when he had the long hair until he cut it off, and then I just thought.
You know what it reminds me of, because it is sad. Him leaving Barcelona. It reminds me of the Beatles breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you just got to let it be.
Come on, stop it. Let's just concentrate on really talking about Lionel Messi.
All roads lead to the Beatles, especially Abbey Road.
Yeah, of course. And all those lonely people, where will they all come from when they don't see Messi playing again for Barcelona? And that wasn't as good as yours. But let's get back to where we once belonged and to talk about Lionel Messi. I'm trying, mate. That was such a good one. I'm trying to match that. I still can't quite find the song to work it. But Lionel Messi, how would you sum up, given that this is a stage of his career that has coming to an end, maybe because Ronald Koeman, who knows what's going on there, but he certainly doesn't feel the love there at the moment. It's shocking to even think about that, because you'd have thought a great player like that choose his own time of departure, just like Arsene Wenger was allowed to choose more or less his own time of departure from Arsenal. You thought a great player, they just fade him off into the sunset as and when it suits him, and he realizes at some point, I can't do it anymore, and let him decide that. Whereas here, he seems to be being pushed out of Barcelona.
Oh, no, I think it's his decision.
You reckon?
Yeah,
it sounded like that Ronald Koeman wasn't the person that.
Perhaps. The Dutch aren't known for their diplomatic skills, are they? I remember working with Danny Murphy during the World Cup. And him saying, I've never liked any of them. I've never liked. He was getting apoplectic as the Dutch reached the quarterfinals.
They nutmegged him a couple of times.
They are argumentative and difficult, aren't they? They're not natural conciliators.
And they speak better English than most of English players.
Isn't that the truth? But no, I think Barcelona would love to keep him. But I think he just can't see the point of spending the little time that he's got left at the highest level playing for a club where the people who run it he no longer respects, and where they're unlikely to be competitive for 2 or 3 years. So let's go somewhere where I can be competitive. One interesting aspect, because he's always talked about rounding off his career back in Argentina with the splendidly named Newell's Old Boys Club in the city of Rosario.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I just can't imagine him with the words with the acronym NOB on his back. I don't. No one looks at their best
This is true.
in that scenario. But I think that there's it may happen one day. I can't see it happening now. But there are two problems with it. One, he's seen enough of South American football to know that the pitches are crap, the organisation's horrible, he's going to get kicked all over the place and so on. But there's another factor, which is Messi, the human being. He's got kids. He's got quite young kids. Now, I've spoken to a few like South American players who had their families in Europe. And then at one point they want to come back. So they come back, and the kids who've usually been born or grown up in Europe, they are just freaked out. They're freaked out by the level of social violence. No, it absolutely freaks them out. And so staying in Europe would be easier for his kids.
That means it'll be easier for him.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, yes. Easier for the kids, easier with the wife, easier for him.
Look, I know he's still got more left. There's still more gas in the tank for him, and no doubt he'll pleasure us for a couple of years more, if not 3 or 4 seasons more. But you know that it will never be what it was.
No, I mean again, this is a serious comparison I'm making. The Beatles solo work, it's great, but it's not the same.
No, yeah. As much as you want to say the odd John Lennon, it's worthy of it. Probably it wasn't quite worthy of the Beatles, though. And I'm thinking about all we need is love. No, I'm thinking of Give Peace a Chance. What is it?
Yeah. All we are saying.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Which is so banal, it becomes a football chant. If songs become football chants, that usually means they're banal.
Well, a couple of the other Beatles songs have become football chants as well. But I'm just saying, not least to Hey Jude, but I'm just thinking, I do get your comparison. It's never as good. So you're saying that Messi was great because of Barcelona then?
No, but that was his best years. And he had, especially in the Guardiola years, he was surrounded with people he was on the same wavelength with. And it was like watching people enjoy a collective childhood. It was magical. Him and Xavi and Iniesta all together. It was, as Ferguson said when he had to play him, they put you on a carousel. It was beautiful to watch, and it will never be quite the same again. If you didn't enjoy it then, you're not going to get anything quite of that caliber again. Not that there won't be great moments, like the post-Beatles career. I mean, has Lennon, did he ever write anything truer than "woman is the N-word of the world"? And looking at that top 10, December 18, this is young
the
women.
real top 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
This is young women responding to that, trying to define themselves, trying to work out ways to define themselves. It's a very female top 10, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, is there any particular tune on it that you want to talk about? Because I'm still on the December the 17th.
Sorry,
December
I steered you wrong.
2017.
Well, the one I most enjoyed listening to was the one that was number 1, which was Ariana Grande, Thank You Next, which is a nice song.
Yeah, it is.
But it's also a beautifully mature sentiment that relationships are, she's thanking all of them with gratitude for, I learned this from that one, and that from that one, and that from that one.
And they're all high profile, her relationships, that very high profile.
I don't know much about her.
I can break it down for you if you like.
But I think that's such a valuable message.
Yeah.
Because we're in look, humanity, for the last nearly 60 years, we have something unprecedented. Nature always makes a relationship between pleasure and reproduction. You see the animals, they seek pleasure, and the consequence is reproduction. Now, for humanity, there's problems there. One is sexually transmitted diseases, and the other is childbirth. You know, it can be an unwanted process, and you know, for centuries and centuries, the amount of women who died in childbirth was you know. But now, with contraception and with penicillin and so on, we can separate pleasure from reproduction. And the possibilities for human happiness there are just extraordinary. The possibilities to express yourself sexually, to get to know on a level of intimacy lots of different people, and to learn from them as you go through life. It's one of the big things I think affecting with an influence on the mental health of humanity. And the Ariana Grande track does that, not from the point of view of, I hate it when people diss each other after a relationship. I find that so depressing. It's like you wasted all your time. No, they were good. Let's value the good things that happen there, so value the good. And it's not the end of the world if one relationship ends. You know, the world's full of people. There are other people that you can connect with. So from a psychological point of view, I think that Ariana Grande, it's got a few fuckings in, which might make it difficult to use in the classroom.
Yeah,
but I think it's got a lot to teach us.
But Professor Tim, and you sounded like a professor right then, by the way. You do know that on one of her videos, is it the video for that one that she's in a spin class? Because I know you don't like spinning classes.
Well, I'm surrounded by women who do it. You know.
Yeah, I know. I just thought I'd
sneer at it.
Thought I'd share that with you. Messi, what's his legacy in Argentina, do you think?
Well, he hasn't won a senior title for Argentina, and he grew up in Barcelona, you know, from the age of 13.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sometimes one of those where it's like the English with Andy Murray. You know, when he wins, he's one of us. When he loses, he's Scottish. You know, there's something of that.
He's Scottish all the time, from his perspective.
Yeah. All right. So when he wins, he's British, and when he loses, he's Scottish. You know, there's something of that with Messi. I find it really interesting what Messi has done with Argentina since the World Cup, because you might have thought after the World Cup he wouldn't want to bother with Argentina anymore. Because they're going through a rebuilding thing. You know, they took a very old squad to
Barcelona.
Russia. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what has he done? And it was always said before with Argentina that he was in his own little world, either on PlayStation or talking to Aguero, his old mate. And he didn't talk to anyone else, and that intimidated people and so on. Since the World Cup, he's really made a conscious effort with Argentina to be the leader, to be vocal and encouraging, and people are really fed off it and really enjoyed it. But I think that's one reason that he doesn't want to stay around at Barcelona. He's already doing that for Argentina. He's already been the wise old owl for Argentina while they rebuild. He can't change his country. He can change his club. So for me, part of the story of wanting to get away from Barcelona is, you know, the wise old owl act. I'm already doing it with Argentina.
And when you go to Argentina in normal circumstances on a weekly basis, when you fly into Argentina, do you have to avoid mentioning the war?
Good point. Good point. Because the first time I was there was January of '96. Now that's 13 and a half years after the war. And I was scared. I had to leave Brazil for 2 or 3 days or something like that, and I got a cheap flight to Argentina. And I couldn't believe the warmth of the reception that I got. It didn't seem to be a problem at all. There were other problems because at that time, tango was really going through a low ebb. The kids, and I was a kid then, I was 29, something like that. The kids, they didn't want to know about tango. What they wanted to know about was Iron Maiden. And, you know, I had nothing to, I'm sorry, you know, I don't know anything about Iron Maiden. The Argentines are absolutely in love with the Rolling Stones.
I know,
they see themselves in the Rolling Stones. There's a whole tribe called Rolingas who kind of base their life on the Rolling Stones. And it's not my style Rolling Stones. I love the Stones as well. But no, I love the earlier Stones a little bit. When they're wearing double-breasted suits like this, they love the kind of heroin-addicted early 70s Stones.
Stones without the wrinkles is what you love.
Yes.
No, I'm talking about the wrinkles of their suits. What did you think I was thinking about?
I remember seeing them. I saw them the first time I ever came to Brazil, which was 95. And that was a huge thing. It's a huge thing.
Wasn't it the biggest concert ever was the Rolling Stones in Rio once, about 180,000
Beach. Yeah, I was there. I was there for that as well. But this was the Maracanã, start of 1995. And I didn't want to go. And a woman thankfully bought a ticket for me, and I went. It was great. I didn't want to go because I was thinking, oh, they're old. And I worked it out the other day. I'm older than they were then, so I was clearly wrong. Yeah. They weren't too old, but certainly in Argentina, you really get that vibe of how much the kind of middle class in Brazil, certainly of our age, they've got more of a thing for like progressive rock. On the number of they're just obsessed with those years from like 68 to 75 that I kind of write off as being like Yes and Pink Floyd and Genesis and all the stuff that we hate and we reacted against. But they love that in Brazil. In Argentina, they've got more of a thing for the Stones.
Yeah. So you don't mention the war when you go to Argentina, or you didn't mention the war?
Well, it just wasn't a problem. Really wasn't a problem. So the anger, I think, was more directed against their own government than it was against the English. So that may have changed with time, because they had. And the war, the Malvinas Falklands War, helped end it. They had the most brutal military dictatorship in that time, between 76 and early 80s, like 83. And it was just horrendous. 20,000 people killed. Lots of them disappeared. No, and there's a paper there on the anniversary of people who disappeared. It prints their photos. Or used to, I don't know if it still does. And I've just stared at those photos for hours because it was the best of the country. The young, idealistic people, who are going to go and achieve great things. They might not stay radicals. It's the way of the world, but it's the best of Argentina. Just got culled in this insane, horrible government, and who tried to seize the islands and fell as a result. So in one way, it was a horrible defeat for Argentina.
It was unnecessary.
But they got something out of it.
Yeah. What was that? What did they get out?
The end of the military dictatorship.
Well, yeah, Galtieri and them had to fall in any case.
Yeah.
At some point or other, but it was too high a price to pay, surely. A lot of people.
Yes, it was, but the conscript troops were so poorly equipped, and it's horrible. The Falklands. I've never been there. I don't think I want to, but it's just cold and bleak. As I can't remember who, but one of the great 18th century English writers said, it's so bleak and inhospitable that there's no indigenous population there.
Doesn't matter. It's a corner of the world that will forever be England. If not Britain.
I don't know. And if it's now the fact that blood has been shed for it makes it difficult to negotiate.
On both sides.
Yeah, on both sides. I would have thought. But it's, for me, and Ozzy Adidas called it two horrible governments playing politics with the lives of their young. And there's something in that. But from an Argentine point of view, I cannot understand why it's important. And there's talk about oil reserves and so on, but all of that can be negotiated. At the end of the day, it's about sovereignty. And why is it important? No one's better off for having it.
It's not like they're running out of space. It's not like Argentina's a country.
It's also and
not that many people.
It's something I've had to think about over time. It's not really a colonial question. And Argentina like to see it as a colonial question, but the population who've been living there, small. I think they've been living there since like 1830 or something like that. So you then pose the question: in 1830, where were the Argentines? And the answer is in Italy.
Yeah, sorry about for the local community that were there
Well, yeah,
before them. What happened to them?
the indigenous
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
which they were just decimated. They were massacred.
And you
Um,
mentioned earlier on that they had a few black folks over there. I do wonder what happened to them as well.
a lot of them died of yellow fever. Some of them enlisted in the army during the wars of liberation against Spain, and moved up with the army into Peru and settled in Peru. But also they're forced to intermarry because there wasn't
There's
enough
nobody
of them.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's in the mix, and quite often people will be referred to as El Negro, the black. I always wonder with this, and I've never come to a conclusion. A mate of mine is a black Uruguayan sociology professor. So, and he's well qualified, and he lived in Buenos Aires for years. And when I asked him about it, he said, "No, I never suffered any racism." So I have to respect his opinion. From our perspective, when you hear when you see like chants sometimes on the football terraces, you're thinking, well, there's no doubt about it. It's explicit racism. They will come back with a thing of, yeah, what happens on the field stays on the field, and it's something that's only used as a means to put people off. With my English background, I'm never convinced by that argument. That doesn't work with me. But my mate, Uruguayan sociology professor, black, he said he never had any problems.
Good enough for me, Tim. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's getting into the afternoon now.
And man, still not hot.
Beginning to rise, but no, still not hot. I haven't got any Rice Krispies though, but I'm still not hot.
Enough of that. Tim, thank you.